Welcome to episode 31 of Ralph's Stuff. Glad to have you back. Tonight, Little Joe Brown, a longtime local radio personality and legend. A wonderful interview. And we follow that with Behind the Microphones, the making of a radio show in the 1930s. It's an amazing and lost art form, sound effects. You'll enjoy this one a lot. Thank you much, and now on with the show. I became acquainted with radio back in the early 1950s, during the waning of its glorious golden year period, mostly during the 1930s and 40s. It was a love affair for me from the first, when that little 6 or 7 year old boy discovered the old Philco tube radio with both AM and shortwave bands. We were your typical poor, rural, mountain family in those days. Electricity did not come to our home until 1950. I remember that day well. And no television until 1956. So I had plenty of time to explore that imaginative realm of fantasy and adventure pouring out of the old Philco. There were hours of great programs in those days. Some of my favorites included Gunsmoke, Boston Blackie, Suspense, Gangbusters, Gene Autry's Melody Ranch, Jack Benny, and oh, so many more. In fact, television turned out to be somewhat of a disappointment to me when we finally got it. I mean, you could see everything. That killed a lot of the mystery, romance, and imagination-enhancing wonder radio provided me. But for whatever reason, more laziness than anything else, I still contend, television took root and the mind-stretching universe of radio slowly died out, leaving me only books to keep the fires of imagination warming me on those cold winter nights and hot summer ones also. And, well, I still read lots and listen to the recordings of old radio programs too. Local radio's golden age lasted longer than the national networks, with innovative local programming continuing up until the late 80s or maybe early 90s, before talk radio killed real radio. There were some mighty fine radio personalities locally. Reed Wilson back in the 1950s, and his replacement Scotty Rodamer, who did the morning show for 50 years from 1954 to 2004. Sid the Surf and Vince Rutherford made us wise. Zeb Lee did his open mic down in front of the S&W cafeteria downtown, and so many more. Great guys, mostly guys because gals in radio as personalities came along later. But I want to tell you, out of all these radio personalities, my two favorites were the unflappable Russ Offhouse, Farmer Russ, and the unstoppable Little Joe Brown. I was privileged in later years to become good friends with both of these golden-throated knights of the airwaves. Back when radio was real, and these two, everyone knew, were even more real than most. Farmer's gone now, and a lot of us still miss him. But Little Joe, well, he's still as feisty as ever, and I got him to sit down for the following interview. Well, kinda an interview. Joe, you just let talk. He don't need no questions. Enjoy this legend of mountain radio.
Okay, the way things happened in radio of olden days, I used to play talking machine records. That was it. I played talking machine records. I didn't have a CD. I didn't have a tape. Well, reel-to-reel tapes, but that was a different era. And the one thing that we did is we got to play love talking machine records to ladies. Now, these days, there's no such thing. They call ladies other names and sell 1 million copies. Of course, 4-letter words has never been in our vocabulary in true radio. Started out in news, went into management, hated that, and for some reason I became a personality, I was told. I don't know if I was a good personality or not, but we had a lot of fun and activities in this area of the mountains. Grew up in the capital of the world, Cranberry, North Carolina, Avery County. Between the Hump Mountain, the Grandfather Mountain, Beech Mountain, and Sugar Mountain. Now, in the valley of Cranberry was the first post office in that section of the woods and the high mountains back there because of the Cranberry iron mines. And when I left Cranberry, I was a very young, innocent juvenile. Went into school after high school and got the bug for radio, and that's how it turned out. Started out, my first professional job was at WRGS over in Rogersville, Tennessee. Then I came to WTOE in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, up in Mitchell County. And from there, worked a little bit for ABC News as a leg man. Wound up down in Southern Pines. Got homesick. Came home, found a station called WBMT in Black Mountain. Went to work there as the morning man, and after half a year, I guess, became station manager at age 24, the youngest station manager in the nation. And from WBMT, I went to WWNC, wonderful Western North Carolina. I did the afternoon road show and a program called Night Watch. And Night Watch turned out to be, well, Night Watch. It was a great, great experience which I enjoyed for years. Then I moved over to Wise, and that's when I really founded the Top 7000. And the Top 7000, I could play anything that you wanted to hear. We had rock and roll, but that was when rock was innocent. That was the age of radio innocence. And if you had a rock song that didn't have a real good melody, you didn't sell. It had to have something. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of Wise, came the British invasion. And some was good, some was not so good. And after that, we had Motown, and then all kinds of expression came through rock music. Fortunately, I have had the opportunity of interviewing, I guess, some of the greatest stars from, well, Neil Diamond. He's been to my house. I've emceed the action shows up the old City Auditorium for a long time, and found all of them just to be aggressive enough to be successful, and that's what it took. One of the greatest things that happened with the action shows up at the old City Auditorium was when we took a break from the action shows, then we had shows like Ferranti and Teicher. Art Ferranti and Lou Teicher, they turned out to be quite a duo, and I had the privilege and pleasure of knowing them for a long, long time. And they had just recorded a song called Theme from the Apartment, and that was added into a movie, and that's when they went across the top. Roger Williams, he was a different bird. That's all I'll say about Roger Williams, except Autumn Leaves. Then, as I continued to go on in radio in this area, I saw changes on the horizon, but I did not know what the changes were. I had no idea what was coming. We had all the basics for the way radio was laid out. There was pop tunes, big band for certain stations, then adult-oriented rock, AOR, and then you had the hard rock in there. You had the country that was always prevalent in these mountains, and you had a few what was called the religious stations. At that time, they were not as numerous as they are now. Now, in mountain radio, for some reason, Asheville, where I spent all my life, Asheville attracted all kinds of people. And I mean, I talked to folks from, well, the President of the United Nations at the time was Sir Leslie Monroe from New Zealand, a great, great guy. I had the privilege of, well, I didn't want to embarrass Charlotte, North Carolina, but at that time of the '67 war, it was something for support for Israel. And that support for Israel still remains in these mountains today. For some reason, evangelicals, which I agree that God has blessed our country because of our support of Israel down through the ages, and I hope to God that will continue. Now, the Jewish community in Asheville during all those years, on Christmas, they would replace the Christians in the hospitals and other emergency situations, and they did it wholeheartedly. And it was a wonderful, wonderful, the Judeo-Christian community. Then, of course, the world-famous evangelist Billy Graham decided to settle in Montreat here in Buncombe County, and with him came one of the greatest persons I've ever had the privilege of knowing, and the most humble person I've ever known in my life, George Beverly Shea. Papa Shea is now 98, going on 99, and he gets up and he fixes Carlene coffee every morning, and boy, can he make a morning man cup of coffee. He sets it down on the table of the counter and it crawls a little bit, but it's great. He serves Carlene, then he sings. And I have the great privilege of eating lunch almost every week with his young'un, so I can keep up, and Papa Shea does call. February 1st, his birthday, you remember that. I'm mentioning other personalities because here in Asheville, we have always had a Duke's mixture of people. And you talk about tolerant, yes. Nothing was divisive here in this community. Whatever you wanted to do, you went ahead and done it. We had a great police department. And most of the time we had good sheriff's department. I always had good fire departments in Buncombe County, and especially across the mountains, because for some reason all mountain people want to help each other. Now that's where the top 7,000 came in as far as music was concerned for me. If you wanted to hear it, I'd play it regardless. But it also gave us the ability to be a, how should I describe, a vehicle of communication from the public servants, the law enforcement, and right into a car on the way to work. We called them cars back then. They're automobiles now. But anyway, it was our good fortune to be able to communicate everything that was going on. The most tragic event I ever covered was out at the airport when we lost that Piedmont. Went down, and old Sergeant Sullins, Jess Sullins, he led me down I-26. It wasn't open, and I had that red Firebird from Harry's that kept up with his Interceptor police car. Well, he was State Highway Patrol. We got down there, and it was such a sight to see, because he got us right in the wreckage area. And I had 13 $1 bills in my pocket, and a young lady was standing on the porch, and I asked her if I could use her telephone, and if she would let me use her phone and make one call, I would give her this money. And boy, that 13 $1 bill looked like a wad of money, and she said, help yourself. I made one call to ABC News, and they took it from there, and I stayed and did the broadcast for ABC until Tom Gerald got in from up in Washington or New York. But it was the time that Dr. Robert Moffitt, he was the medical examiner for Buncombe County at the time, but when he got over there, he took control, and it was something else to see. And that was the most horrible thing that I've ever experienced in all of my life. But the thing about it was, if you could have seen the response from the community of Western North Carolina, and if I recall, Secretary of the Navy McNaughton was on the plane, and I got an exclusive because I was in there, and I had the run of the whole place. I saw sights that I would not want to describe to you, but I'll never forget as long as I live. That was it, and after that I kept growing a little bit here in the Asheville market, and I had great friends at the other radio station. Scotty Rodarmer was over at WWNC on the mornings, and of course my friend Farmer Russell Offhouse. He was on WSKY when I was on Wise. And one April Fool's Day, Russ and I wanted to change. I wanted him to do my program at Wise, and I would go up in the old Northwestern Bank building and do his and see what would happen. But at that time, Zeb Lee wouldn't let us. Zeb said, no, this will not be done. Zeb Lee turned out to be my boss the last 15, 16, 17 years that I spent in commercial radio. And what a great guy he really was. He was actually a sports nut, and he spent half the day every day on sports stories. And of course, he called the Asheville High basketball and football games. I think he started in 1947, the same time that he signed on with the Carolina Network, and he carried the Carolina Network as long as he was at WSKY. And he knew all the coaches. He knew, well, Zeb was a walking encyclopedia in sports. And if you liked Carolina, you got along with Zeb. If you liked sports, you got along with Zeb. He and Farmer Russ used to have quite a time. And I'd get in the middle of it and agitate if I could, which I had the great ability to instigate and irritate and aggravate until, well, the outcome was really, really good. I spent a lot of time just talking to people at Asheville. One time that I embarrassed the Queen City was when the Consul General of Israel, at that time, Netanyahu, was coming into the South and going to Charlotte. And so I got on the horn and called the Israeli embassy in Washington and asked why they would go to the Queen City when they had Asheville to come to and find out what life was really all about. And he came down, and I had an exclusive interview with him. Cosby Morgan, the FBI resident agent in charge, was right below us. I was on the 15th floor of the Northwestern Bank building. Glenn Wilcox was up on top. And then right below us was Cosby Morgan in the FBI office, Quigley and Chemo, all of them down there, and they were alerted that there were some folks coming in, and they did. And when they pulled up beside of the building down there and went through the hall, the coffee shop with those Uzis, everything changed around the Northwestern Bank building that morning until we had a great interview. But it was things like that that we were able to do that you could not do in broadcast radio today. I stayed with AM, and AM will no longer be in existence probably in another 10 years as a viable method of communicating. It'll go satellite, and of course FM has replaced AM. I finished my career working for Dr. Billy Graham at WFGW's Gospel Hymn Time. Gospel Hymn Time originally started with Marshall Pack. I don't know if any of you remember Marshall Pack, but he started it on WSKY. And when I left WSKY and went out to WFGW, we took Gospel Hymn Time with us. And it was a great experience working out at WFGW. And of course, I've been off the air for a couple of years now, and I have no desire to go back. No desire whatsoever. Been writing a little bit and trying to stay out of everybody's way and just enjoy life.
Watch Ralph's Stuff at 8:30 p.m. every Tuesday here on Channel 20. We travel the world to bring you interesting videos. It's my sister's horse in Nevada. me at the World Science Fiction Convention in Los Angeles this past August and in Zion National Park. We filmed in 7 states and 2 countries.
And now we come to the thrilling final episode of our radio drama. Old Pete Belden, driver of the jitney from Carsonburg to Copper Springs, has a double load today. Pete's ancient bus is carrying the Flying Bee payroll and a passenger, his niece Betty. Little do Pete and Betty suspect as they chug over the desert wastelands that just around the next curve, Shifty Sam Hicks and his henchmen lie in wait.
It hasn't been the same without you, Betty, but now that you're back, you'll find nothing's changed and nothing's happened.
Nothing's happened? Why, I heard you had 2 new horses. I can't wait to give them a run.
You be careful where you ride these days. Got a band of rustlers operating in the neighborhood.
Oh, pooh. You don't seem very scared, carrying the payroll in every month.
But you better stick close to home.
All right, Uncle, don't worry. Now, how have the new...
Stay right there, buddy. Where's the Flying Bee payroll?
Yeah, it is, Sam.
Give it here. And tie him on the horse. What about the girl? We didn't count on her being along.
We'll tie her in the car. Let's get going.
Meanwhile, Betty, frantic at her uncle's danger, has undone her bonds and is starting for help in the crippled car.
Sheriff Tom, hurry, hurry.
Betty, where's your Uncle Pete?
We were held up, Tom. 3 men. They took the Flying Bee payroll and headed up toward Pine Gap, and they took Uncle with them.
Come on in the house quick. We'll get the boys together and we'll go after.
No, I'll take the jitney into town and get my car.
All right, Betty.
Hello?
Ring up the boys, man. Tell them to meet me at Pine Creek Forks. The Flying Bee payroll's been robbed. Pete Belden's been kidnapped. Tell the boys to ride. Hey, George, where'd you put that ammunition? It's in your desk. Which drawer? The middle one.
I declare, I'll never get these dishes done. Looks like a storm coming up, too. Hello, what is it?
Is Fred there, Mrs. Jones? Sheriff rounded up a posse.
I'll call him, May. He's out in the yard.
Send him to Pine Creek Forks. Hurry, Sophie.
Fred! Oh, Fred!
Hello!
Posse, Fred. Sheriff wants you at Pine Creek Forks. They're riding.
All right.
Go, boss. Steady. Hey, Joe. We're saddling. Tom wants a posse. Something stirring, I reckon.
All right, Fred. Better stop that windmill. We're on the storm.
See you later, Ma.
Be careful, Fred. Hello, May. They've gone. Have you got the other boys?
Some of them. I'm calling the blacksmith now.
Hello?
Sterling. Payroll robbers. Meet the sheriff at Pine Creek Forks. Pick up Bill and Frank on the way.
I'm riding, Harry. Just let their wagon out of the way. Where's your pa, Junior?
He's back on the far section with the reaper.
Hey there, Bill. Get down off of that.
I can't hear you. Wait a minute. No, what you say?
Somebody held up the jitney. Probably the Hicks gang. Bring your horse. They've headed for Pine Creek. Guess they're going through the gap. Hurry up and I'll meet you at Frank's.
And so, as the storm breaks around them, the sheriff's posse gathers at Pine Creek Forks, prepared for action.
Men, Hicks and his gang have been around this country too long. We're going to clean them out today. But we got to remember that old Pete Belden is with them, and we don't want him to get hurt. All right, boys, let's hit out. Come on, men. We're gaining on them.
They've seen us, Tom.
Right, fellas. They probably have fresh horses at the creek.
Hold up there. We'll set fire to the gap and stop. Whoa! Slim, you chop a couple of them small trees.
Right.
We'll spread a fire they can't get through.
These are pretty green for burning, Sam.
Grass is dry as tinder here. That'll get it started. Shorty, you get some of that dead wood burning in a hurry.
Grass is catching on. It's dry, all right.
How about the trees, Slim? About ready? Move back. He's coming now. Cut another one farther back. Apache's closing in on us. Here they come. We better hold them off till this fire gets too hot to cross. Slim, Shorty, over that side.
That fire's sure too hot for us, Sheriff. And they can get out of range any time they want to mount. Looks like they'll give us a slip.
Why couldn't you get through in my car, Sheriff? They might do something to Uncle if we don't hurry.
I'll bet we could get through in the car if we got a good start.
It's worth a try. Who'll drive it?
Don't forget he's my uncle, Sheriff. I'll drive it through myself.
You'll drive nothing. Get out and get behind the trees.
They're mounting up, Sheriff. They're heading down the creek.
All right, Jack, let's go. Two of you men come with us. The rest of you keep firing.
Slim, come on. Follow me. All right, boy. This way. Come on. All right, come on now. Come on, boy.
So we leave old Pete safe and sound with Betty in her new car. And to our friends of the radio audience, we bid a pleasant good night.
Go to ralphwroberts.com to see this show again.